Hi, my name is Paul Gingras. I'm from the province of Quebec in Canada, and that's where my story starts. When I was about 2 years old, I couldn't speak very well yet, and I would ask my mother to bring me outside to take a look at the sky because I wanted to see these orbs in the sky. And the reason I wanted to see them is they gave me a feeling of hope, familiar, like I wanted to remember something. But my poor mother couldn't understand me. She thought I wanted to look at weather balloons, which were not in that area at the time. So I was frustrated as a 2-year-old not being able to explain to my mother what I wanted. But that's my first memory pertaining to this subject of interdimensional beings, is what I call them. My next memory is of being 4 years old in the Montreal area. We lived on the second floor of an apartment building. And one morning I woke up to a very hard poke to the middle of my back. And I saw this face that was under a hood, very wrinkly, scary, with no nose, 2 little slits for nostrils, a very wrinkly face, brownish, gray brownish, and a little mouth that looked like it was trying to smile at me but really couldn't. And it terrified me. And this went on for, I don't know, maybe a summer, where I would wake up in the morning with this little witch poking me hard in the back. And I got so used to it that I started trying to catch her. And every morning I would wake up in this way, and I started out throwing myself under the bed trying to catch her there because she was never there in the room. So I thought maybe she's hiding under the bed. Then I started getting up and going over to my closet and looking for her there, but she was never there. And in the meantime, at this point, my brother had been having horrible nightmares, screaming at night, and I never woke up. I wasn't aware of these nightmares, but I'd hear about them during the day. And I asked my brother about these nightmares recently, and all he could tell me was that he could see 2 big cats in the window looking at him, and it terrified him. And that's all he could say about it. He said he couldn't talk about it because it was too upsetting for him, but this is as much as the information he could give me about it. And during that time, I asked my parents if I could switch bedrooms because my brother and I shared a bedroom. And I asked them if I could sleep in the guest bedroom, and they assumed it was because of my brother's nightmares. But that wasn't the reason. My reason was because I was going to trick my little witch, is what I used to call her. And I called her my little witch because she was exactly my size, my height. And I liked that. I thought that was really neat that she was my height. And I thought, I'm going to trick her, and when she comes to get me, I won't be here. I'll be in a different bedroom. So I started sleeping in the guest bedroom, and when I did, what started happening was something different. It was a blue light would start shining in the hallway, and I would see the blue light, and then it was terrifying. It was terrifying. when that blue light would appear, I knew they were coming, and it was absolutely terrifying. And then what I remember seeing is these 3 little ghosts, I used to call them. It seemed like they were a little, even shorter than my little witch, and they would float into the room like they had a white sheet over them with little black eyes. And they would come and get me and float me out of the room. And it seemed like this happened repeatedly, because I knew when they would come, it was like, oh no, they're here again. And the fear was intense. And that fear never stops. Even, as recent as 2 summers ago, I had an experience, and the fear is just the same. The only thing that's better is I have a knowledge of what's going on now, sort of, or I'm more familiar with what's going on, so my fear goes away quicker. But the fear is just as primal. And so another thing tied to this story at 4 years old is that my mother caught me one night in the hallway opening up the door to our 2nd floor apartment, getting ready to go downstairs. And she said, Polly, what are you doing? And I said, I'm going downstairs. And she said, what for? It's the middle of the night. And I said, because my little witch is down there waiting for me. And she goes, there's nobody down there. And I said, oh, yes, there is. And she said, no, there isn't. And I said, oh, yes, there is. I don't remember anything much except doing drawings, between the ages of 8 and maybe 12. And I started doing these drawings of characters with big black eyes. And I drew this man in a 3-piece suit with a hat under a big ball of light with big black eyes. And I drew a cat with these big black eyes. And then I drew this bug. I have pictures of all this. I drew a bug with these big black eyes, and I didn't know what the body looked like, so I just kind of winged the body. I knew it wasn't the right body, but I knew the face was right. And but I didn't think anything of this. I was just, I don't know, things in my head. And another drawing I did one afternoon in Vermont, I drew a lot, and I drew this little old man that looks like a gray, standing on a cliff, and he's got this long skinny body with these long hands and fingers and big head, and he's looking over a cliff, and everything's dead. The earth is dead. And my mother says, oh, why do you have to draw such depressing things? And I said, well, I don't know, I have this in my head, or this old man is really sad because the earth is dying. And I said, we have to be careful. There's things we're doing are not good for the earth. And I was kind of weighed heavy on me, these thoughts of not being good to the earth. And I ended up being obsessed with recycling and composting, and I stopped eating meat, and it was all connected to these feelings. I don't know if this was 18 years old. I was still not living with my parents, but I go to their house on weekends. And this weekend I went to their house, and I was going to go out to a local bar. And I remember my mother commenting how I was leaving late because I left at 11 o'clock to go to this bar. And of course, when you go out, that's what time you go out. You don't go out at 9, you go out at 11. And I was heading down the road by myself, which I did often those days. I would just go out and meet people I knew. And the bar down the road was maybe 7 minutes down the road, 10 at the most. And I left at around 11, and halfway there, I was in my car, and my car was at a full stop, and I didn't know where I was. And this is a very rural area, and I was on a road where there were just trees around me, and I didn't know where I was on the road, and I didn't know if I was on a different road, another road parallel to this road. I didn't know if I had passed the bar. There was a village, the bar, and then another village, and I didn't know if I'd already passed the first village or went through the second village. I was completely disoriented and a little bit in a panic, and something said to me, just keep driving, and as you drive, you'll get your bearings back. You'll remember where you are. And I just kept driving very slowly, still confused, and I really didn't know where I was until I got to the bar, and I thought, oh, thank God. And then I got out of my car, went inside, and I found a young man that was a friend of mine. And I looked at the clock, and it was like 5 of midnight. And I thought, that can't be right. You know, in bars, they change the clocks to get people out of the bar sooner. And I thought that must be why. And I thought, that's crazy. Like, it can't. And I kept staring at the clock thinking, like, that's not even possible. And I had one drink, and then I convinced my friend to leave with me to go to this swimming hole to swim. And that makes no sense too. I hadn't even been there for 20 minutes, and I convinced my friend to leave with me. And so we went down to the swimming hole, and he wasn't really uneasy. He was afraid to go swimming. And I remember teasing him that he was afraid to go swimming and afraid of the dark. And it was, again, very rural, like no one was around. This was next to a cornfield and a covered bridge. And last thing I remember is we're both laying on the beach, and there's all these cars. I can see all these beams of light from these cars, and I thought, how could we not hear these cars all drive in? And so we both get up, and I just went home. And I always thought, that was the weirdest. You know, what happened that night? Like, they're so strange. Then, around the same time, I don't know, maybe a few months later, I ended up moving to Vermont, near my parents in a village, and rented an apartment on the second floor of a Victorian house. And it was freezing. The house was not insulated, and I moved in the summer, and it was great. And then winter came, and it was freezing. And so one night I'm sleeping, I'm in my bed. This is the second floor of a Victorian house, and my bedroom was at the back of the house. And it was in a village, so in a regular neighborhood. And the back of our house faced other houses, other yards and houses. And I woke up around 1:30, 2 o'clock with this bright light shining through my window. I had a window in front of me and a window to my right. And I was swearing. I was like, who is the jerk flashing his high beams in my window? And then I realized that that's not even possible, because the window is too high for a car's high beams to flash in my window. And so I got up and I went out to look out the window to see what it was. And I couldn't see out the window. It was so bright, I couldn't see out the window. And I went to the window to my right, and it was the same thing. I couldn't see through the window. It was too bright. And I was so excited. Because I loved, paranormal stuff, and I'd had all kinds of psychic experiences and dreams and predictions already in my life. A lot of interesting events had happened in the paranormal area in my life. And so I love that stuff, and I thought, this is so cool. And I go into the corridor where there's no windows, and the corridor is lit up like daylight. My bedroom is like full-on daylight. The hallway is full-on daylight. And then I look in the living room, because I had 3 cats at the time, and I thought, well, let me see what the cats are doing, because then I thought, well, maybe this isn't good, but no, the cats were sleeping on the couch, and they were very calm. And I thought, well, if the cats are calm, it's good, it's fine, it's good. And so then it was cold. So I thought, well, I'm going to go sit in bed and I'm going to wait and see what happens. I mean, this is amazing. This is so great. This is so exciting. I mean, I'm going to sit here until I see what happens. And then first thing I know, I wake up the next morning. And when I woke up, I thought, I can't believe I fell asleep. It's not even, how could I fall asleep? And I get up, I sit up in my bed, and there's dried leaves, twigs, dirt in my bed. And I'm like, how did this get here? And then I had a flash of something I'd seen on TV of people saying they've been abducted by aliens. And I thought, no way, no. And I put it right out of my head, because in those days, I thought that was crazy. And I just thought that it was a really cool experience. And after that, in the days to follow, I predicted so many things. I would know things that would happen before they would happen. I would know who I would see before I'd see them. I'd know who was calling before they called. I would know all things like that. I even had a TV that was plugged in a wall, with just a little 12-inch TV with a plug in the wall. And my neighbor's cable was coming through my TV, which was impossible, because in those days, there were just rabbit ears or a real cable connection, and my TV was simply plugged in the wall, and his cable TV was coming through my TV. And I just thought it was really cool. I thought it was a cool experience. So that apartment was so cold that I had to move out. I called a landlord who lived in Florida then. I said, well, you're nice and warm in Florida, but I'm freezing. I have to move out. I have to break my lease and move out. And in the meantime, my parents had bought a house next to their house, which was in the country. And somebody had built this log house and just to sell it. And my parents bought it thinking they would rent it to skiers and cyclists in the summer. And then finally, when I was looking for a place to live, they said, well, why don't you move into the log house, which was very secluded. And I said, yeah, absolutely. So I moved into the log house. And when I moved into that log house, oh my God, that's when all kinds of things started happening. First of all, I had been reading a lot of shaman books, Carlos Castaneda books, Lynn Andrews books. I was devouring these books about spirituality to a different degree, and could relate to it because the odd experiences I'd have in my life, and dreams I'd had, and dreams that were more like visions. And when I moved into that log house, I would get up in the night at that log house, and I would look up at the sky, and I would see little lights squiggling around, doing funny maneuvers. I mean, every night, all I had to do was get up and go look at the sky, and there they were. I mean, it got kind of, I got blasé about it. I would always look up at these stars and think, oh, there they are, there they are. And then I had all kinds of crazy dreams about amber lights in my yard, and wolf dreams where I was devoured by wolves. I had a really beautiful dream about dolphins who told me that they were dreaming me, and I was their dream, and I was floating above this beach, and I was asking them where I was and what this was, and they said that I couldn't possibly begin to understand, that it wasn't a place for humans, and I couldn't possibly begin to understand. And I was aware of being in my bed in a dark place and where the dolphins were, and I had that type of dreaming a lot, of being aware in my bed in a kind of a void in a different place. And one of those dreams, I was on my back, and something was being explained to me. I was laying on my back, and I could see like the sky, and all these triangles came together from different directions, and they formed a unity with a black hole in the center. And I understood what it meant. Now I don't, but I understood when it was being shown to me what it meant, and it meant something. When all this came together, it meant some sort of unity, and that it was significant to humanity. But when I would wake up, I couldn't. Even now, I have a hard time explaining what it all means. But somehow, in some part of me, I know what it means. One day I went out with my mother to a drugstore because my mother was an avid reader. She read a book a night, and she was always looking for stuff to read. And she was, in the store looking in the book section, and I was probably looking at other stuff. And so I look on the bookshelf, and I see this face. So I go over to where my mother is in the books because she was still looking for books. And so I go to the book section, and I see this book on the shelf with this face, and I thought, I know that face. That's my little witch. That's my little witch. That's always been my memory. I've had this memory my whole life. It's just been a thing that happened, an unusual thing that happened in my life when I was 4 years old, and that's it. It was just a memory. I didn't know what it was about, and just an unusual experience. And on this book cover is my little witch. So I walk over to it, and it says communion. And so I turn the book over, and I start reading what it's about. And I'm reading how it's about real life events of a man who says he's been abducted by aliens. I had to buy the book. So I asked my mother, can I get this? And she said, oh yeah, sure. Because if I was reading, she was happy. And so I bought the book, went home, read the book. And it destroyed my perception of reality. It almost just about destroyed me. When I read things in this book, it kind of brought together all of my experiences that I always thought were just cool experiences. I didn't have a problem with my experiences. I was happy about all my unusual experiences. They were exciting to me. They did not disturb me, did not upset me. I thought it was great when I had an unusual experience. I loved it. And when I read this book, it broke down my reality completely. I had to rebuild how I was going to live my life. At that point, I couldn't work. I could barely go to school. I couldn't function anymore knowing what I knew. That these beings actually exist. So then my little witch became one of these people, one of these creatures in communion. Now she had a title. I could fit her in somewhere, and it wasn't great. And the light in my bedroom, if I'd have known when that light came into my bedroom, if I'd had already read communion, I would have been terrified. So it was good I hadn't read communion, because it was a pleasant experience instead of a terror. And but maybe later, I don't remember everything. I have never been hypnotized. So I want to say all this and write all this down before I get hypnotized. And I do want to be hypnotized at some point and fill in the blanks. So when I read communion, it was very difficult. There was a big pause in my life. I couldn't function. My parents were pretty worried about me. I was fortunate that I had a place to live and a car to drive, and when I couldn't function. My father didn't really know what was going on with me. My mother did. I told her everything. And she was very patient and interested in what I was going through. It was so intense to think that this had happened. Even now, now I'm more relaxed about it, but even now I think, when people see this, they're, I'm the biggest skeptic. When I hear people talk about stuff like this, I am the biggest skeptic, whether paranormal stuff or psychic stuff or new age stuff, or I'm the biggest critic and skeptic. And really don't like all the crap that's out there about this stuff. Wish people would understand that this is more of a natural and actually normal human experience. And we're just starting to be able to talk about it, maybe because we're evolving just enough to be able to start being able to grasp what's going on. And how I feel about it is I feel that these beings are interdimensional beings traveling through space and time that are from different dimensions, and that we go there and come back. We go into these, or at least myself, I've gone into these dimensions and have come back, and in different ways. So I feel I'm an interdimensional being in a way. I feel like I move interdimensionally while I'm awake, napping, sleeping, but I'm not fully aware, completely aware, not like saying, okay, I'm going to go to the store and I'm fully aware of going to the store and coming back. I have part awareness of events. And I feel like all this is tied in with these interdimensional beings. Like we coexist. We coexist. And I don't know about space. I'm not an astronaut, although I wanted to be one when I was a little girl, but I know we coexist. They are not separate from us. We coexist. We're neighbors. We're tied together. Humans have a tendency to think we're separate from, and we're not separate from this. They are not others. We are all tied to this. We are part of the universe. They're part of the universe. Humans need to learn that we are part of. We're not separate. That's a mindset we're gonna have to evolve out of. It's not us and them. It's we are one. We are spiritual beings, whatever shell we may have. So there's a lot of stuff I know innately, but I can't verbalize. I wish I was better with explaining. But there's a lot of things I know, and I move through my life that way, knowing things. And I don't always verbalize what I know. I just move through life with this information, that's how I move through life, is just by this inner knowing. I know things. When I meet people, I know things. I know things about them, I see them. But it doesn't mean I'm going to talk about it or talk about them or judge them. I just know things when I look at people. I know who they are, who they truly are. You cannot talk about this. Even now, I'm feeling edgy about releasing this and having people see this. But it's time.